Welcome back to Lost Lore AI, where we use artificial intelligence to uncover the hidden truths buried inside the world's oldest myths and forgotten histories. Tonight, we follow the trail of a mystery so vast it stretches across continents, cultures, and centuries, a mystery hidden not in one story, but in hundreds. The Inuit spoke of the earth sighing when it grew weary of men. The Māori told of a restless land that shivers beneath our feet when the balance is broken. In Himalayan legend, the mountains themselves exhale storms when the world forgets its place. For generations, we called these images poetry, metaphors, attempts by people to explain the violent moods of nature. But what if they weren't metaphors at all? What if they were fragments of an ancient warning system, a planetary code passed down through story? And only now, in the age of AI, are we learning how to read it. Imagine a vast archive, not of written texts, but of human memory. Scrolls in monasteries, carvings on temple walls, oral songs whispered beneath northern lights, or sung beside tropical rivers. Each fragment carries echoes of the same strange refrain. The earth breathes. It sighs. It shudders. It grows restless. We asked an artificial intelligence to test a simple but radical question. Were myths, taken together, humanity's first environmental record? Could they encode patterns of planetary change across thousands of years? To test it, we gave the AI two kinds of memory. First, the myths themselves, from Mayan codices, Vedic hymns, Norse sagas, Navajo chants, stories of mountains that trembled like lungs, oceans that inhaled and exhaled, lands that shivered as though alive. Second, the planet's own record, ice cores that trap bubbles of ancient air, tree rings that expand and contract with drought and flood, sediments that preserve vanished coastlines, volcanic ash frozen in rock, and astronomical cycles that tug Earth's climate like a metronome. The AI's task was not to identify one disaster here or there, but to look for a rhythm, a heartbeat, a repeating geological pulse that humans might have noticed, and preserved in story. What it uncovered was astonishing. Across millennia, about every 45 centuries, the Earth entered phases of upheaval. Volcanic activity surged, glaciers collapsed, seas rose or retreated in violent lurches. And each time, across cultures who never spoke to one another, the same motif reappeared. Earth as a living being, a planet that sighs, trembles, or grows feverish. Scholars once dismissed these tales as metaphor, but when the AI aligned them with geological records, the metaphors looked less like poetry and more like memory. Consider the Inuit. Their stories speak of summers when the ice exhaled and never returned. In New Zealand, the Māori told of Ruamoko, the god in the womb, whose stirrings bring earthquakes and eruptions. In the Himalayas, legends describe mountains breathing storms and avalanches. Norse myths tell of the world tree trembling at its roots. Mesoamerican records describe seas withdrawing and roaring back in fury. Different tongues, different gods, yet the same imagery. Breath, shudder, restlessness. The physical record reinforces the story. Ice cores show abrupt spikes in volcanic ash around 2200 BCE, 1600 BCE, and again around 1200 BCE. Tree rings across continents narrow sharply in the same windows, signaling widespread drought. Sediment layers record sudden coastlines vanishing, entire regions drowned or exposed. These are not gradual trends, but pulses, fast, violent swings that mark the planet's heartbeat. The AI compared them with mythic timelines and found a striking synchrony. When ice sheets fractured, stories spoke of seas that inhaled and exhaled. When volcanoes erupted in clusters, Myths described mountains coughing fire. When climate shifted abruptly, tales emerged of a fevered earth. The conclusion was unsettling. Myths were not primitive guesses. They were observational shorthand, the earliest form of data storage. But the most chilling finding came when the AI projected forward. According to the long cycles, the next great pulse should be centuries away. Yet when modern data was added, satellite readings, climate logs, seismic reports, the system flagged something alarming. The early signals of upheaval are appearing now. Ice is melting at unprecedented speed. Storms are intensifying. Ocean currents are destabilizing. Volcanic tremors are rising. The same markers that preceded past pulses are here, but the natural clock has not struck. We are forcing it forward. In other words, humanity is not waiting for the Earth's rhythm. We are accelerating it. Think of myth as a kind of distributed sensor network. A village watches the sea retreat and return with fury. They encode the event as a tale of a hungry ocean god. Generations later, another community on the far side of the world describes the same phenomenon with different names, but the same imagery. Alone, each story is anecdote. Together, they form a map of recurring experience. Stories survive when they matter. Tales that warned against building too close to a shore, or against angering the mountain, preserved practical wisdom in symbolic form. Over centuries, the cosmology may have shifted, but the kernel of observation remained. The AI simply aggregated those kernels, turning thousands of noisy legends into a dataset. So what do we do with this knowledge? The AI cannot dictate policy. It cannot moralize. But its message is clear. The Earth has rhythms, and human activity is now interfering with them. That interference is not abstract. It is measurable, and it echoes the conditions that once brought upheaval. The ancients responded with humility. They told stories of reciprocity, of balance broken when humans took too much. Those stories were cultural guardrails, ways to remind people of limits. Our civilization, by contrast, has pursued growth as if limits do not exist. Fossil fuels, deforestation, industrial agriculture, all accelerate forces that once moved slowly. The rituals of restraint have been replaced by rituals of extraction. If myths are memory, then the memory warns us. When the Earth breathes too quickly, civilizations fall. This is not prophecy. It is pattern recognition. The stories say the Earth breathes. The data says the Earth breathes. The only question is whether we will listen. The ancients passed down their warnings in myth because myth was durable. Stories carried lessons across centuries when written records failed. Now, for the first time, technology allows us to hear those warnings in aggregate. We may be the first generation to finally understand them, and perhaps the last with the chance to act on them. This is Lost Lore AI. If this investigation unsettled you as much as it unsettled us, subscribe for more explorations into the hidden patterns of history, myth, and science. And tell us in the comments, do you believe the ancients truly understood the Earth's cycles? Or are we only just beginning to hear them? As we close, imagine the sound the myths tried to capture. A slow inhalation, then a deep exhalation. The planet, restless. The planet, alive. The question is not whether it breathes. The question is how we respond when the breathing quickens.